For Module 3 of Microsoft Access, we are going to be talking about maintaining your database. Mainly this is going to involve adding things to your database, whether it just be adding additional records, making changes to records if you have found that there is a mistake, other things like updating addresses, phone numbers of companies if those have changed. So some different things like that as far as maintaining goes. Also, we will be looking at adding some new fields. Maybe you will decide that you have some additional needs, so you can add additional fields to your database or additional tables if needed. We're also going to be learning how to do some filtering, how to do some different types of queries. We've mainly used select queries now. We did learn the crosstab query, but we'll be doing some other action queries like updating and deleting records from tables. We'll also have a big section in here on working with validation rules. So basically, validation rules are ways to help the end user cut down on data entry errors. So there's lots of them that we'll be going through for different things like that. And then just a few things at the end that are kind of just some good information to know, but not necessarily things that are going to be life-shattering as far as when we get to them or having to use them for anything down the road in a database experience. So the first thing that we're going to do is we have our database that we have opened up from our download, and you'll notice that this looks very similar to what you have been working on because it has all of the tables that you've been working on, all the queries that we made back in Module 2, as well as the forms and the reports. So you do want to make sure that you have that grading info table here and that you have clicked on the yellow bar to enable editing to get started with this so that it will grade and score correctly and you can see that report if you need to make some changes. The first thing that we are going to be doing is creating what is called a split form. We've been working with forms before. Forms are where you basically just see all of the fields in a table on one screen in front of you that allows you to view only one record at a time, which is nice because you're only viewing that one particular record and you don't have to worry about getting offline and getting in the wrong customer or client or patient as this one is. So we'll be creating a split form which is going to show us both views. It's going to have a table view or that datasheet view, and it's also going to have that form view. It's going to be split, so part of it's on one half of the screen and part of it's on the other. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a split form based on the veterinary vendors table. So if you have the veterinary vendors table selected over here in your navigation pane, then we'll go up to the Create tab. And in our Forms section, you will not see anything that says a split form. So you'll have to come over here to where it says More Forms, and then you'll see the split form option there. That's all there is to it. Your split form has now been created. All we really need to do at this point is just go ahead and click our Save button up here on our Quick Access toolbar. That's going to save this as the veterinary vendors. Actually, we're going to add veterinary vendors, and then we're going to add split form after that. Again, very important that you remember to save these objects with the correct names. If they're not saved with the correct names, spacing, punctuation and everything exactly, the grading Sam will not know what to do with it. So make sure you type it exactly as it needs to be. So once we have this saved, I'll point out a couple of things to you. So we only have 5 records here. So down here in our navigation buttons, it does show us that we have 1 of 5, and we can navigate by clicking through those. What you'll notice here is I'm on record 3 here, and it highlights record 3 down here in the table view, or the datasheet view. Sorry, I keep saying table view, but it's the datasheet view. Now, because we only have 5 records here, this is probably not that big of a deal. You're probably thinking, why in the world do I need to have a split form? Sometimes this is beneficial for people. They can see the whole list that they have in front of them, but then when they pick one vendor, in this case, that they need to work with, then it puts that information up on the top, and it's easier to navigate through that particular vendor to make changes to them if needed. So we are going to add a new vendor by clicking on the new blank record button. Now that can be located in a couple of different places depending on where we are located here. So we are in our design tab up here. Okay, so if you are on the home ribbon, you will see in your records section here that you can create a new record. Also, by using those navigation buttons down here at the very bottom, you will see the new blank record button is at the very end of the navigation pane, the triangle with the yellow star at the end of it. You can also just click on the new row here in the datasheet view, and that will bring up a blank form where you can type your new record in here. So our ID is going to be automatically put in there should be a number 6 once we start putting our information here. This is going to be Global Pet Supply. I thought I was typing up here. Alright, let's try this again. Oh, it's because I'm not in the right view. Oops, that's not the right view either. Okay. Global Pet Supply. And then as you tab through here, it's going to just go right across that table form, the datasheet version like you see. Alright, so we have our vendor, their street address, city, state, zip code, the veterinary supply, what they are providing us with, the quantity, and the cost for each one. Alright, so I can't remember if I pointed this out to you. If I did not, I failed to do that, and I should have done that. You'll notice that there's a little pencil icon here. That lets us know that we are actually writing that record. It has not been saved yet. So once we press our tab key to move from the last field to the next blank one, then that pencil icon disappears, and that lets you know that that record has now been recorded and saved so you won't lose that information. Okay, so they're going to have us use do a find here. So we are going to stay in our veterinary vendors split form here, and we're supposed to have number 1 selected. So if we come back here to our vendor 1, and that lets it just start searching from the very beginning there. And then we're going to come up here and use our find button. Now this again is on the home ribbon, so if you didn't go back to the home ribbon previously, you'll want to go there now so you can find this this find button. When we click the find button, we get the find and replace dialog box that pops up here in the middle of the screen. And we are going to find microchips. And then we are going to, we have to click on the replace tab first. So we'll type microchips in the find, and then we'll go to the replace with never mind. No, we do not have to do that. We're just going to do a find. So we'll click on find next, and so it will find our microchips. Okay, so it is not finding that. Am I not in the right? Okay, so to use our find button, we need to be in our veterinary supply. That is a step that I missed. And then we will use our find because it was searching in the current field and I was not in the veterinary supply field, so that's why it wasn't finding it. So we'll do find next. It will find the microchips, which is provided by Mays Supplies Corporation. So that just shows you how you can use the find. When you have more than 6 records, it's much more helpful. When you only have 6, you can just look and go, oh, there's the microchips right there. So we can cancel out of that. While we do have that record open, though, we are going to make some changes to the vendor name. So when we see the vendor ID 3, we'll make sure that is correct. We are going to change this so that it reads corporation. We're going to replace the word corporation with LLC. So we're going to backspace out corporation, and then we'll type LLC. And we can tab. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to delete one of our vendors. So we will select either from the form or the datasheet view the vendor name Sanchez Supplies. So here is our Sanchez Supplies, and we want to delete this. So you can press your delete key. You can come up here to the delete button in your records section. It will say that you are about to delete one record. Are you sure that you want to do that? And we are going to say yes. So now we only have 5 records. But one thing I will point out to you, because we're using this auto number field for the ID, we have now removed number 5 from our auto number field. Number 5 will not ever be used again in this datasheet version. If we add more records, it will go to 6, 7, 8, and then if you delete records, it will just remove those numbers. Our next section in our textbook goes through how to use filters in Access. Filters are nice things to know how to use because you are able to do some filtering to get some quick answers for things, but you don't save filters. So there are 4 different types of filters that we'll be looking at. Filter by selection, common filters, filter by form, and the advanced filter sort, which is going to be the more detailed filter that we can do, which we can also convert and save as a query if we find that it's something that we think might be helpful to be saved as a query. So what we're going to do is we're going to close out of our split form here. And this is just asking me if I want to make changes to the design of our split form, because I made some formatting changes somewhere. We want to open our veterinary vendors table. And we're going to open in Datasheet view, so we can just double click on that. The first thing we're going to do is a filter by selection. So we'll come to the city. The second one is labeled blanding. And so now that we have that selection made, we're going to filter using that selection. So in our sort and filter part of our home ribbon, we're still on our home ribbon, you will see a selection in that sort and filter. So when you click on the selection drop-down button, you get equals blanding, does not equal blanding, contains blanding, or does not contain blanding. So we are going to choose the one that says equals blanding, and then that applies a filter to our table. So you see that it's only the customers that have, or the vendors, that is ID number 2 and ID number 4 are the ones that are from blanding. Now, when you have applied a filter, if you look at your sort and filter section of your home ribbon, you will see that the toggle filter is now grayed out. That lets you know that the filter is turned on. The other thing you can look at is down here by the navigation buttons. You will see that it highlights that this is a filtered table that we're looking at. So in order to turn our toggle filter off, or in order to toggle our filter off, we're going to click on the toggle filter button here. It will remove that filter and it will show you all of the records again. Now, if you click toggle filter, notice how it's not grayed out or highlighted. If you click toggle filter again, it will apply that same filter again because we did not clear out the filter. So we've created a filter by saying we only want the city of Blanding. Now we have to also go in and remove that filter before we can do any other type of filtering. So to clear a filter, we will go to the Advanced button, and then right there is Clear All Filters. Get rid of all those filters, and we'll see everything. And as we get ready to do the next one, which is a common filter, there's nothing that's going to stop us from getting the correct information since we have removed that previous filter. So this time we are going to use what's called a common filter. We'll go to the city field, and there's a drop-down arrow next to that on the right-hand side of that field. When you use the drop-down list, you will see that you can sort ascending or descending. You also have text filters. You also could deselect all of these and only select blanding. But what we're going to do is use a text filter. And we're going to use a text filter that begins with, and then we're going to type in the letter B. And when we do that, it narrows it down to those two suppliers from, or those two vendors from Blanding. So we got the same information, but we went about getting it two different ways. So our filter's on, we'll turn the filter off, and we have to clear the filter. So we did filter by selection, and then we did a common filter, and now we're going to do filter by form. So filter by form is basically going to show us our fields up here, and then we're going to be able to select which data we want from each of those fields. So to do a filter by form, we'll come to the Advanced button and choose the second option, which is Filter by Form. So here you see your field names up here. And we are going to go to the State field. And you can use the drop-down arrow here, and we're going to choose CO for Colorado. Then we'll go to the quantity. We're going to choose the blank row below that, and we'll type greater than 75. And then we can do our toggle filter to turn the filter on so that we will see customers that are from the state of Colorado and they have a greater than 75 quantity. So here we go. Mays Supplies is from Colorado, and they have more than 75 quantity, or we have more than 75 quantity of their product. Right, so we'll clear our filter here so we can turn our filter off. Go to the Advanced filter and clear that filter. And our last type of filter that we'll be doing is the Advanced filter sort. So again, we'll go back to our Advanced button, and right below where we saw the filter by form, or I guess two down, you'll see Advanced filter sort. Now this is going to take you to a screen that's going to look a lot like the queries that we did back in Module 2. So to do an Advanced filter sort, we are going to set this up just like we would if we were doing a query. So we're going to pick the fields that we want. In this case, we're going to do vendor name. So this is set up just like we did queries. So we'll double click vendor name. You can also, remember, click and drag to put the state in. And then our quantity, again, you can get it a different way by using that drop down. Okay, so now that we have all of those in here, for our vendor name, we want to sort in ascending order. In our state, we're going to use the criteria CO, so that we only get those from the state of Colorado. And in the quantity field, we are going to enter the criteria greater than 75. And then we'll go to the or row and choose or type in less than 40. So we want quantities that are less than 40 or greater than 75 from the state of Colorado, with the vendor name being in ascending order. So again, make sure you compare your screen to the pictures in the textbook to make sure that they match. We will click our toggle filter button to filter this, and our results should bring two vendors to us, Mays Supply and Rodriguez Vet Supply. Now, you will see here that, or as you're looking through your textbook, that it gives you an explanation of the filters versus the queries, that you could take this and save it as a query, but right now it's not set up as a query. We can go ahead and toggle the filter off. We can go into the advanced filter and clear the filter, and then you can go ahead and close your table. Okay, and you do not want to save any changes to that. So those are the 4 different types of filtering that you'll be doing. As we move on to the next part, this takes you through changing the database structure. And I've talked with you about that. When you're changing the structure of your database, those changes are not things that are saved automatically. It's just when you do data entry, those things are saved for you once you have recorded a specific record. So to change our structure, we are going to be changing things like a field's data type, the field's size, one of them may have like, if it's a number field, it may have some different formatting that we can put down in the properties. We're going to delete some fields. We might add some fields. So all of those things are things that we're going to do that changes the structure of our database. So the first thing we're going to do is open our veterinary vendors table in Design View. So I'll get my veterinary vendors table. And I want to open this in Design View, so I'm just going to right click on it and choose Design View. And I'll close my navigation pane. And what I need to do here is I'm going to find the quantity field and the field size for the quantity is set to long integer. And we are going to change that field size from long integer to single. So if we use our drop down arrow here, you will see that you have the single option there. Right below that, you'll see the format row. Right now, there is no choice there. You're going to use, again, the little drop-down arrow over here, and we're going to choose Fixed. And then below that, you'll see the decimal places. Right now, that's set to auto, and we're going to change that. Using this drop-down arrow, we're going to set that to 2. Now, we can use our Save button up here on our Quick Access toolbar. We're going to save that structural change that we made. You will see that in the decimal places, you have a Property Update Options button that pops up. And if you click that drop-down arrow there, you get the option to update the decimal places everywhere that quantity is used. We are going to make that selection, update decimal places where quantity is used. And then we are going to make sure that this says Form Veterinary Vendor Split Form. And then we will say yes. And it will update it in that form view as well as this table. Next thing we're going to do is add a new field. So in our list of field names here, we need to add a field that is above the row quantity. So we're going to right-click our row selector here where it's gold out there. We'll right-click it, and then we want to insert a row which will put that row above the quantity row. Our new field name is going to be called Product Type. Ooh, maybe I should get on the right keys. And this is going to be a Lookup Wizard. So we'll use our drop-down arrow there for Data Type. Come all the way to the bottom where it says Lookup Wizard. Now this is where we are going to be creating an actual drop-down list like we just used. So we are going to be creating, oops, let me hit cancel here. We are going to be creating a list like this, but our list is only going to have a few things in it. So once we click on the Lookup Wizard, the Lookup Wizard starts the process, and it says, this wizard creates a lookup field which displays a list of values you can choose from. How do you want your lookup field to get its values? Do you want to, I want the lookup field to get the values from another table or query. So it means we'd be using another part of our database for that. Or we can type in the values that we are wanting to use. And that is the choice that we want to select. Once we have that, we'll click our next button. And this is the form where we will type in the different types of products that we're going to be working with. So our first one is going to be VAC. Then we'll use our down arrow. I'm guessing that stands for vaccine. The next one is MC, which would be microchip. And then the last one is SUP, which I'm guessing is like a supply. So what type of product are we working with here? We can go ahead to click the next button, and here's where it's going to say, what label would you like for your lookup field? So this means what is going to be the heading or the top row of our column for the product type. And we are just going to leave it as product type. You might want to just double check your spelling. And then you will see at the bottom, well, a couple of options here that I always forget to go over. Do you want to limit entries to the choices, those 3 choices that we typed in? If you do, then you would want to click Limit to List. We do not want to do that, so we're not going to put a check mark there. The second part down here says, do you want to store multiple values for this lookup? That is asking, can this product be a vaccine and a microchip? Can it be a microchip and a supply? And the answer to that is no. So we do not want to allow multiple values. So neither one of these are going to have a check mark in them right now. So we can go ahead and click Finish. And if we go back to look at the table view here, or the data sheet view, this is just telling me that I made some changes. I thought I hit save, but maybe I didn't. So that's okay. I can save it now. All right, so now I have a column here for product type that doesn't have anything in it. So I would have to go back to all of the records that I have put in this table and now add the product type to them. Because I only have 5 records, it's really not going to be that big of a deal. And they don't tell us what they are just yet. We're going to go back and set up a different lookup wizard. So we are going to close out of this table for now. That is because I made the column width of product type wider. That's why I got that little message there. So this particular table we're going to be working with is the appointments table. And we are going to open this in Design View. So you'll see that you have, I don't know how many fields there. What we're going to do is right-click the row for a treatment number. Then we're going to do Insert Rows, and it'll put 1 row above. So now after appointment time, right, so now we're going to go to the treatment number row, and we are going to click the data type, and we're going to go down to Lookup Wizard. And then we're going to choose that I will type the values that I want. And then on this next page here, we are going to enter the different items we're going to put in this. So we are going to use table 3-1. So we're going to put in here T-1, and as you go down, you'll do T-2, T-3, T-4, T-5, 6. We're going to go all the way down through 14. So we can just keep doing this. Okay, so now that we have 1 through 14 put in there, we'll click our Next button. And this is asking us what we want ensure that treatment number is entered as the label for the lookup field. Okay, so treatment number. Then on this particular one, we do want to allow multiple values. So we need to make sure that checkbox is clicked. And then we'll click the Finish button. And it is telling me I changed this to store multiple values, and that is what I want to do. So I will say yes to that. And then I will close the table. But I am curious as to why we put in a new row. I'm not sure why we put in a blank row there, but it did tell us to do that. So we'll figure that out here in just a second, I guess. All right, so we can go ahead and close out of our appointments table. And we'll say yes to that. And then the next thing we're going to do is create what's called a calculated field. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to, in our veterinary vendors table, we're going to open this up, and we are going to calculate the quantity that we have in our database, the quantity of each product, and we're going to multiply it by the cost that's given to us in our veterinary vendors table. So we'll open our veterinary vendors table in Design View. Under the cost field, we're going to click that blank row, and we're going to type in total amount. And our data type here is going to be calculated. So you can just start typing in CAL and it should pop up. Or you can type the whole thing, or you can click the drop down arrow and choose calculated. Doesn't matter either way. Once you've selected calculator, it will open up this expression builder for us. And we are going to find the quantity in our expression categories. We can double click that. It will pop it up into our expression builder. We are going to multiply this, so we're going to use the asterisk. And then we're going to multiply this times the cost. So again, we can double click the cost. And then we are ready to click the OK button. So now we have our total amount. That is a calculated field. And when we save our changes that we've made here, then we can go back to our previous view, and you will see here where it says total amount. This is, we have 50 items. They're $4 a piece, so they're worth $200. Right? Yes. All right, so we can save those changes, and then we are going to go ahead and close out of this table that we put our calculated field in, and I will change the size of those, of course. Our next section in our textbook is dealing with mass changes. So whenever we add a new field to a table, there are probably several records in there that does not have data saved to it. So you had all these records put in. Now you've added a new field, and you have to go back and fill in all of those records with that field that they're missing. So you can do that by using these mass changes, a mass update, a mass delete. You can also use an action query, an append query, a make table query. All of those are different types of queries, or different types of things that you can do that are called mass changes. So what we're going to do is create what's called an update query. The update query is going to be made like our other queries. So we're going to be in our query design grid. So we can come up to our create, and we want to choose a query. Let me find it. So if we go to query design, you will see that you can select from, or you can do a select, make a table, append, update, crosstab, or delete. Well, we want to have a query type that is an update. I'm sorry, that's not correct. Yes, it is. We want to have an update query. Oh, and I didn't add a table. We need to, okay, let me back up here. Let me back up. No, I'm not going to save those changes. Okay, so we're going to create a new query on our veterinary table. So if you have your veterinary vendors table selected, and we choose create query design, why is it not pulling that table in? I don't know. But anyway, we can add our selected table here this way. Now we have the table that we need. And to create an update, we are going to update that production type, because that's our new field category that we're going to insert into the table the different product types that we have. So because most of our products are going to be VAC for vaccine, that's what we're going to use in our update query. So we want to update our product type field in the veterinary vendors table so that it is the criteria VAC. If we click the run button here, oh, of course, that did not work. Okay, so that did not work because it's a select query, not an update query. So I need to make sure that that changed to update. I think I clicked on a couple different places, did not have my update query selected again. So here where it says update to, this is where I am going to put in the VAC because I want all of them to be updated to that criteria, VAC, as the product type. Now I will click the run. It's going to tell me that I'm about to update 5 rows. Is that what I want to do? Yes, every row is now going to have the product type of VAC, even though we know that that's probably not correct. But we'll go ahead and click the yes button here. When you're doing an update or a delete query, you have to use the run button. Don't believe you can run the view button and get by with it. I think you have to do the run button. So I ran it, I updated it. So now if I close out, do they have us save this? No. So I can go ahead and close out of this query, and I'm not going to save the changes to the query. But if I go back into my veterinary vendors table, you should see an update of all the product types are VAC. In your textbook, it does give you information about how to use a delete query, how to use an append query, and how to use make table query. I know you'll do some of those in the textbook project, the homework project that you'll be working on. Also, I remember that I had some students that had some difficulty doing this on one of those projects. So just going to say, make sure you read your directions and go slow, and hopefully you won't have any problems doing those append and delete queries. We are now ready to work with the section entitled Validation Rules. Now, this can get a little confusing because the entire section is called Validation Rules, but yet we are also going to be creating a specific validation rule, and I'll try to point that out and make it more clear when we get to that section. But validation rules in general, as an overall concept, they are used to ensure or to help ensure that the person doing the data entry follows the requirements of the person who created the database. So things like a field something has to be entered in the field. It would be a required field. And we're going to set up a specific field that would be a default field. So like the vaccine, the Lookup Wizard that we just created with the vaccine, the microchip, and the supply. Probably most of our things are going to be vaccines that we buy, so we'll set that default value to be that, so we don't have to change that each time, only when it's something besides a vaccine. We'll set up a range of values that have to meet a certain criteria. So just all kinds of different validation rules that we have to follow. Now, when we set up a specific validation rule for a specific field, we will also include what's called validation text. Validation text is going to be the error message that pops up whenever you don't type in the correct information, or whenever what you type in doesn't meet the validation rule that has been set up. You will see the message pop up that is the validation text that tells you this is what you need to follow. This is a rule you need to follow. So we'll be doing some of that validation text as well. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is change our field size. And a lot of times when we do like state abbreviations or zip codes, we set those to be a smaller field size so that we don't have data entry errors when we're typing in that type of information. So we are going to open our veterinary vendors table. We're going to work in design view doing this. And we're going to come down to the zip code field. So we have to select the zip code field that is in the top portion of this. Then we'll come down to the bottom portion, which is called your field properties. And our field size here was left at 255. It doesn't need to be that big. So we are going to change the field size to 20, which seems odd to me for a zip code, but hey, that's what it says to do. And then we will go to, now I will just tell you, we're getting ready to change to the vendor name, and we're going to make it a required field. And I'm stopping to tell you this now because what I find a lot of times students have, it's not hard, they just forget to make sure they switch from the current field they were working on to the new field where they're putting the new requirements in. So we need to make sure that we change from our zip code field up to our vendor name. Our vendor name is not a required field. Because we have the auto number field as our ID field, and that's our primary key field, our vendor name is not a required field. We're going to make it a required field because we don't want to get data in here and then go, oh, which vendor are we talking about? Who is this? So we're going to make this a required field. So once vendor name is selected, come down here, find the required row where it says no. You can backspace that out and type a Y, and yes will show up there if you don't want to go over and use the drop down. Our next part of this is we are going to specify a range. So for this particular one, we are going to use the quantity field. So we'll come to the quantity field, and we want to set a validation rule that the number that's entered in here needs to be greater than 0, but less than or equal to 1,000, so that we're not able to put in 10,000 or more, but we also can't put in a negative number. So we will go to the validation rule line, and we are going to type in that this must be greater than 0 space and less than or equal to 1,000. So this is our validation rule for the quantity field. we now have to put in validation text. This is what I was talking about. The text that we type in here is going to be the text that pops up on the screen when an error message is sent if somebody doesn't follow the validation rule of being between 0 and 1,000. So I say that so that when you're typing your validation text, you need to be aware that other people will be reading this, not just you. So we will type in must be greater than 0.00 and at most 1,000.00. So we've got that range of values, specified the range of values that we can use there. It has to be greater than 0 and less than or equal to 1,000. So the next validation that we're going to put in here is that we want to specify a default value. And this is where I was telling you when we put that product type in, we're going to go to the product type field, and because most of our products are vaccines, in our default value row, we're going to type equals VAC, and then with our product type, we are also going to add a validation rule, which is going to be in the directions given in your textbook, and it will be written as specify a collection of legal values. So what we're going to put in our validation rule line here is that the legal values are the VAC, the MC, and the SUP. So the way we write that in our validation rule I am on product type. In my validation rule, I will be typing equal VAC space or space equal MC space or equal SUP. So that's the validation rule, and we'll come down to the validation text, and we'll type in here must be VAC hyphen space MC hyphen space or SUP. So those are going to be in all capital letters as well. So make sure that you get those done correctly. Now that we've made those changes, we can click our Save button. Because we've made structural changes, they're not going to be saved, so we're going to have to click our Save button. And now it's going to give us this message that says, some data may be lost. Because we have set up rules after we've entered data, we're getting this message. So it's wanting to know, do we want to check what's already in our database versus the rules that we have just now set up. And we don't need to do that. If you pressed yes already, it's not going to hurt anything. Either way, we should be fine because we don't have that much information put in here as it is. Alright, so let me just pop back over to Design View here. And and I'll come over and show you if I type a new okay, if I start a new record and I skip the vendor name because maybe I can't remember where it was, but maybe I know the city or state or whatever they're in, so I go and put that information in, and I try to move out of from one cell to another, or from one record to another. It's not going to let me do that because I have made in the veterinary vendor table, the vendor name field is now a required field. So I have to put, I have to say okay to that. So then I would have to put something in here. It doesn't matter what, just something in there so it recognizes that there is a vendor name, and then I can complete this, or since I know I don't really want this, I can, so this is telling me that my quantity has to be, I don't know, so I'll put those numbers in there. You will see the VAC is the default one, but you can change it from the list as well. Okay, so we've got the required field. Oh yes, the list of, if I try to type in MAN here, it is going to give me this validation text. This is what pops up. It must be VAC, MC, or SUP. And what I put in there is clearly not that, so I would have to say okay. And it really shouldn't be a problem because we have a drop-down arrow for that particular field, so hopefully we'll get those all done correctly. Okay, so I'm trying to think, what else did we do there? I think maybe that's it. Oh, if we try to put in, so let's try to put in 1,000 or 10,000. Oh wait, that was cost, sorry. Okay. So this is going to tell me that I have too many zeros in there, so, again, I have to say okay to that. So, alright, I'm going to hit my undo button because I think I should be able to do that for, oh, nope, it's not going to let me. Alright, I'm just going to get rid of this because I don't want this record. I could just right click on it, delete that record, and say yes. So, I didn't need that information anyway. Alright, to change the contents of a field, we're going to make some additional changes based on those rules that we just set up. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up our veterinary vendor table, which we are already there, and then in the Gaines Vet Supply, we are going to, after the word Haven, type in the word Boulevard. So, 320 West Haven Boulevard. Then we're going to use that lookup field that we created. So we'll go to the veterinary vendor table, and in our product type, click the down arrow for the okay, so we're still working with Our product type here, we are going to change to for our microchips, those are both vaccines. So this will be changed to the MC. This one is going to be changed to supplies, or SGP, and then this is going to be left at VAC. Alright, we're going to close out of our veterinary vendors table, and this is because I made the width of one of those columns wider, so I will say yes to that. And then we're going to open up our appointments table. Okay, in our appointments table, what we're going to do is, oops, sorry, I have to be back over here in this view. In our, oh, I think I have the wrong one opened up here. Oh well, we'll go with it. For a treatment number, so we have appointment ID for patient F1, and their treatment number, or their treatment numbers for June 30th are T3 and T10. Then for the next one, it is T4, T7, T14. And our next one is T2. Next one is T1 and T8. And then the last one is T4 and T7. Alright, so that wasn't too bad to get all those put in there. And then you can click on another row to save that last one there. The next part here talks about changing the way that your printout looks, or your datasheet version looks here. So what they have us do is we're going to open up our veterinary vendors table. And then we're going to add the row of totals. So you'll see this row totals come across. Alright, so now in our total row, if you click on one of those cells, you'll see that there's a drop down arrow. So you can do a count. Average, max, min, count. So by adding that total row, it allows you to do any of those different calculations with that total row that's been added. To change our grid lines in our data sheet view, with our veterinary vendors table open here, we can go to so they have us choose this. This is an interesting button right here. It's to the left of the field and above the row. That is the select all. It will select your entire data sheet. View. And now it says to click our grid line. So up here in our text formatting, you'll see the grid line icon there, and they want you to change that to show both grid lines. And if you choose horizontal, then you'll only see those that are horizontal. If you see the vertical ones, you can choose just the vertical ones also. If you want to change the color of the font, or the color of the background, you can do that. We can choose alternate row coloring. So right now one of them is like this really light white, almost gray. So if I deselect this, you'll see that I just put that orange color in there. The other thing is if you, oops. So depending on where you are, how you have this set, you can change the alternating color. Now if you use this more color, or I think we actually have to go into this dialog box launcher here. Yeah. So right now here's the background color, which is a white color. So if I change that to a gray color, and then my alternating background color is that blue, then you'll see you get the blue and gray color background there, which I think doesn't look very good at all, but that's something that you can play around with if you're wanting to add some color to one of your data sheets. Also, you can change the font size. I know this is a little more difficult for me to read. You can change the font color, all of those different things you can do. So they have you do all that, and then you're going to close out of the table, but you're not going to save any of those changes. So let me point this out, because sometimes in the past you have had to set a cell effect to flat, raised, or sunken. So that's where you'll find that information here in the data sheet. Alright, so I'm going to close out of this, and I'm not going to save any of these changes because I'm not supposed to, and I don't want to get it messed up. Next, we are going to create a query using the appointments table that we have the multi-valued fields in. So I'm going to show you how you can make these queries and how they're going to look a little bit different than some of the other queries. So we're going to create a query with the appointments table. Okay, so what I want to show you here is that we have this treatment number, and then we have a treatment number dot value. So you need to make sure you know the difference between those. So we'll take a look at creating queries and see what the results look like from each one of those. So we're going to add the appointment ID, the patient ID, the appointment date, and the treatment number. Now, it's not the treatment number dot value, it's just the treatment number. So if I run this query to see the view of it, you will see that the first patient, F1, has an appointment date for June, and the treatment numbers that they should be receiving is T10 and T3. So that's what you should see for the results of that. And then the other ones should be listed there as well. T2. All right. Now, if we want to include multi-values on multiple rows. So you'll see that there's multi-values that's on one single row. If you needed to know how many T2s you were going to be doing, how many treatment 2s you would be doing, then we can set our query up. If we come back over here to our design grid, we can change our treatment number. Let me just select this. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of that field, and then I'm going to select the treatment number dot value and put in here. And now when I run this query, I will see that here's my patient ID of F1. They are going to be receiving these 2 treatments, but I could also sort on one of them so that if I come back over here to my design view, and let's say that I want to sort I can sort these ascending, and then if I come back over here, okay, I don't know what I did. Oh, I took the check mark off there, I think. There we go. Okay, so now they're sorted in ascending order. So I have T1, T10, T14, because they start with a 1, and then I have 2, 3, 4, and 7. The other thing that you can do, and I think they show you that here in the textbook, is, oh, hold on, back up. We're going to do not sorted, and we're going to change this back to alright, so this is a query that you're supposed to save. So here you would do save as. I am saving as a save it as an object. And then this is going to be M03 Q01. So you need to make sure you save that query, and then they have you change it to the multi-valued, and you save that as 02. So all you're changing here is from the treatment number to the treatment number dot value. Okay, so then this one you would save as M03Q02. Save as, save object. And this is where it is M03Q02. The next part of your textbook goes through referential integrity. You will be setting up the referential integrity, which is basically going to tell you that you cannot have you have to have a relationship between your two fields in order to set up this referential integrity. So what we're going to do to set up our referential integrity is we're going to close out of everything we have open, and then we're going to go to our database tools, and then you will see that there's a relationship button there. You'll click the relationship. There's not a relationship that's set up yet. So what we are going to do is click on the add tables, and we are going to add the owners table, and then we're going to add the patients table. We're going to create a relationship between these two. So I'm going to make sure I can see everything there. And then the field that they have in common is the owner ID field. And so we're going to create a relationship with that. So we're going to take the owner ID field from our owner table, and we're going to drag it over, and when you get close to the owner ID field on the patient field list, you can let go of that. You'll get the edit relationship dialog box that pops up, and this is coming from the owners table, the owner ID. This is coming from the patient table, which is the owner ID. And then we want to choose enforce referential integrity, and then cascade update related fields. Then we can click our create button, and our relationship has been created between these two tables. So if I move this over here, you'll see there's a number 1 here, and this little, what looks like an 8 lane on its side is the infinity symbol. So you can only have one record that matches up here, but you can have many records over here that use the owner ID field. Okay. Once we have our referential integrity set up, if we close out of this, and you can save this, so we'll just say yes to this. Now if we come back and we open up our owners table, you will see there are little plus signs. just to the left of each of the owners. So when you click on that plus sign, you will see that our owner is Tiffany DeFranco, and she has Hooper and Oliver. And so you can open up all of those and see all of them if you want to. You can also hit your collapse, if I can see it here to get to it, to collapse them so you don't see all of that information. So this is called the sub-data sheet. Your sub-data sheet is kind of cool because you can add, so for instance, this person, Kramer, does not have any, there's no patients yet. So you could put in a new patient right here. What I was talking with a student earlier this week, and I don't think I explained this to you guys earlier, but one way that you can kind of think of your objects that you have in a database. So we have you've created these forms and reports and queries. All of those things, when you're saving them, you're saving just the structure of those objects. The actual data that's used to fill those forms or fill those reports, that data is stored in that table that you first created. So you're only storing like a structural part. You're not actually saving a table or a report with all the information in it, or a query with all the information in it. You're only saving the structure of it. Once you run the report, once you run the query, once you open up a form, then it pulls that information from the table and it populates whatever object you have that you're looking at. So, all right, we're pretty close to the end here. It does talk about inconsistent data, ordering records. We've already looked a little bit at ordering. You can see here that you can sort them A to Z, Z to A. And I think that's all I want to talk with you about. But what you will want to make sure that you remember to do is, before you close out of this to submit it, make sure that it's make sure that you have done the step of on the right thing here. Okay, this compact and repair. That's what I was looking for. So we'll do the compact and repair. Make sure that it's as concise as can be, small as can be. Once you have that, then you're ready to submit. So I think that's all on this one.